everyone. Today we are going to talk about a unity element of this theme. Themes are the fundamental and often universal ideas explored in literary work. Usually it includes moral or message about life that is indirectly stated and it's the reader's role to grasp it. So theme is not stated directly in a piece of work or in a literary work. You have to identify it through understanding the story. And I don't mean the main idea of the story because I'm not talking about the exact idea of that exact story. It's something bigger than that. It's something that you can relate to your life, something that is universal, a message. So when you finish reading a story or when you read a literary work, you ask yourself, what did I learn from this story? And of course, it won't be stated directly in the literary work you are reading. Let's watch a video in order to understand more.
Hello, readers. Today I want to talk about themes. A theme is an important idea that is woven throughout a story. It's not the plot or the summary, but something a little deeper. A theme links a big idea about our world with the action of a text. Sometimes a theme answers a question the story is trying to explore, like, what does it mean to be a family? Or what are we afraid of? Themes will be statements that answer these questions, like, you don't have to be related to someone for them to be your family, or we are afraid of losing our individuality. Now, theme is different from the main idea of a story or its summary. The main idea is what the story is all about, and the summary is the events of the story. It's the plot, it's what happened. But the theme is a lesson, or a message that you can take out of the story and apply to your own life. Themes are universal, that is to say, anyone can relate to them. So if I tell you a story about how I got food poisoning the one time I ate a sketchy roadside hot dog instead of packing my own lunch, the theme isn't avoid Sticky Pete's hot dogs on Route 91. The theme is it pays to be prepared, because not everyone has a Sticky Pete's, but everyone can be prepared. Ugh, why did I eat it? Why is it green? A theme is similar to a moral, but a moral is more about a specific lesson it's trying to teach you. A theme could be a lesson, but it doesn't have to be. Sometimes you can discover the theme by asking yourself some big questions. What did the characters learn? How did they grow and change? Why did characters act the way they acted? What's different at the end of the story? And what stays with you after the story is over? Let's go through a folktale and see if answering these questions helps us to uncover the theme. This is a story about Anansi the spider, a heroic trickster from West Africa. Anansi was clever, but he wished to be wise. Wiser than everyone, in fact. He decided that he'd take all the wisdom he could find, all the wisdom in the whole world, and gather it all inside a little clay pot. But he didn't like having it in the house, this pot of knowledge. What if our kid knocks it over? He asked his wife, Aso. What if someone comes over in the night and steals it? Who's coming to steal your pot, Anansi? She asked. Nobody even knows you have it. It's not safe, Anansi cried, and he decided to hide it. I'm going out, he said. Don't follow me. Whatever, said Aso, who went back to doing something that was actually useful. Anansi wandered through the forest, lugging this enormous clay pot of wisdom, never aware that his little son Ntikuma was following close behind. Not tall enough, said Anansi, looking at a cliff. Not deep enough, he said, frowning at a canyon. Aha, said Anansi, when he came to the prickly thorn tree at the edge of the forest, near a little stream. Now this will do just fine. Anansi had many legs, and he was very strong, but even he could not climb the tree and carry the pot of knowledge at the same time. He scrabbled up the tree, then slid back down again. He wiggled up the tree, then slid back down again. He clambered up the tree. Hey, Dad, Anansi's son called out. What? What? I said nobody follow me. What are you doing here? Anansi cried. You should tie the pot to your back, Dad. Then you can use all your legs to climb the tree. He was right, but it didn't matter to Anansi. I'll teach you to give me advice, you little miscreant, Anansi yelled, shaking his fist. The same fist that held the handle to the pot full of wisdom. It went sailing into the air as time seemed to slow down. Oh no, said Anansi. Oh no, said Anansi's little son. and the pot smashed open right there in the stream, carrying all of Anansi's carefully gathered up knowledge into the ocean, sending it out to the whole world once again. You are in so much trouble, Intikuma, Anansi said, clambering back down the tree, and then he said, ow, 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 because in his haste he had poked himself on the thorns of the tree. His son took off running for home, and Anansi raced after him, and as they ran, it began to rain. And as the rain came down, Anansi stopped running and began to walk and think. Ntikuma's plan would have worked after all. When he at last caught up with Ntikuma, he apologized for losing his temper. What was the use of all that wisdom if I can still be outsmarted by my little son, he said. The two of them embraced. And because of Ntikuma's timely interruption, a little bit of Anansi's knowledge lives in us all today. So, our questions checklist. What did the characters learn? Well, Anansi learned that even if he had all the wisdom in the world, a child could still have a better idea than him. How did the characters grow and change? Anansi apologized for losing his temper and realized that he wasn't the only person with good ideas. Why did characters act the way they acted? I think Anansi was greedy. Why else would he want to have all the wisdom in the world and not share it with anybody else? And what's different at the end of the story? At the end of the story, everybody gets a little bit from the pot of wisdom. It flows out into the ocean and gets sent to everybody. And Anansi realized that keeping all the wisdom to himself still didn't make him the wisest all the time. Finally, what stays with you after the story is over? The fact that all of us, you, me, your Aunt Matilda, all of us have a little bit of Anansi's wisdom inside of us. So a theme of this story could be anyone can have a good idea, or wisdom is inside all of us. What theme would you give this story? Discuss it with your friends, your classmates, your family, and let us know. The theme of all of my videos is and shall forever be that you can learn anything. David out.
So, theme is about learning life lessons in an indirect way. Theme is the search for meaning, the search for universal meaning. What is a theme? Theme is life lesson, meaning, moral, or message about life or human nature that is communicated by literary work. In other words, theme is what the story teaches readers. So you can ask yourself, what did I learn from this literary work or from this story? What is the writer trying to teach me? Usually a theme is not a word, it is a sentence. But it can also be a word, but most of the time it's a sentence. You don't have to agree with the theme in order to identify it. For example, you can say money can buy happiness. Don't judge people based on the surface. It is better to die free than live under tyranny. So, some people don't agree with the theme of money can buy happiness and they can see that money can buy happiness. But you don't have to agree with the theme as we said in order to identify it. What is the theme? Let's read that example and I try to identify the theme in it. Carrie loved her phone and her tablet. She was always looking at one or the other. Her parents would try to talk to her about her life, but she would just ignore them or give them monosyllabic answers until they left her alone. When she was at school, she'd sneak peeks at her phone under the desk, whenever she could get away with it. When she was at parties, she spent more time interacting with the devices in front of her than with people around her. Even at concerts and sporting events, Carrie seldom removed her eyes from these tiny screens. One day, Carrie was walking home from a friend's house and watching a funny video of people slipping on ice. She began crossing the street just after the light changed. She was so into the video that she did not notice the oncoming traffic. She walked directly into the traffic while laughing at the falling people on her tiny screen and was hit by a bus. Carrie sustained mild injuries, but both of her devices were destroyed. As far as she was concerned, her life was over. So, what do you think the theme here is? Yes, practice moderation with all things desirable can get much to a good thing. Safety first. All these are possible answers for the previous extract. But why? What is the explanation? Carrie loves to use her phone, but she needs to balance that desire with the more practical concerns of safety and well-being. So, to practice moderation with all things desirable, do not do not use something or do not be into using something more than other things. You have to be moderate while doing everything you are doing in your life. Themes are not explicit, they are not clearly stated, they are not directly stated in a literary work. You have to identify it. They are implied. Themes are bigger than the story. The story has a small world, and then you apply that world of the story to the big world, which is the theme. You apply it to the real world in order to identify the theme. Themes are about the big picture. Not Carrie should get off her phone. Not phones can be dangerous. Think bigger. Find real world advice that applies to many situations. To conclude, theme is what we can learn from a story. Themes must be inferred or concluded. Themes are not limited to story specific details, they are about the big world. Let's practice. We are going to read each story and then write what you think the theme is, and write another sentence explaining what happens in the story that leads you to believe this. How does the small world of the story connect to the big world, which is the theme? Kelly had a job at the movie theater, but it didn't pay very much and she was sick of working there. Nonetheless, the work was steady and she needed all of the money that she could get. To her delight, Kelly got an interview at a big office downtown for a job that paid much more. The interview went very well and the bosses all but offered her a position. They said that she would fit the role well, and they promised that they would call her back within 2 weeks. Kelly couldn't wait to quit her job at the movie theater. As soon as she got back, she put in her 2 weeks' notice. She spent the next 2 weeks bragging to her coworkers about her new high-paying job in the big city. Yet 2 weeks passed and she received no phone call. When Kelly decided to follow up on her interview, she learned that the bosses had chosen a different candidate. Kelly was crushed. So, what did you learn from that story? Ask yourself, how can you relate this story to your life? How can you apply it in real life? Is it about not quitting a job before getting another job? Or about what? Let's see the answers. Nothing is a sure thing before it happens. Why? Because Kelly conducts herself at her old job as though she had been hired at the new job. She should have waited until she received the job offer before she quit her old job. Furthermore, when she quit her old job, she should have done so in a respectful way, without bragging to her coworkers. So, nothing is a sure thing before it happens. You can relate that theme to everything in your life, not only about quitting jobs and getting new jobs, not only about bragging coworkers. You can apply it to your friends, you can apply it to your school, you can apply it to everything else in your life. I hope that you are understanding what is theme and don't hesitate to ask me about anything else.